And here we go on a Wednesday night at the Voice of College Football, the college football show late night previewing week 11. Check out the programming schedule today at the Voice of College Football. I really can't give it to you off the top of my head, only where I've been, which has been Ohio State Buckeyes Live, 11 a.m. Eastern this morning. So that's every Wednesday. Buckeye fans, Big Ten fans, if you just want to follow arguably the best team in the country, check us out on Wednesdays on the Ohio State channel for Buckeyes Live, 11 a.m. Eastern time. So that was our first stop. Then later today, we had Miami Live at 7. We had Florida State Live at 8. And just a few minutes after getting Florida State wrapped up with our special guest, Jason Priester from the Clemson Insider, talking Florida State and Clemson. No, not a big game this year. A lousy matchup with two struggling teams, but it is Florida State and Clemson. And so check out the Miami show and check out the Florida State show. And here we are taking your calls for the next hour. So we are awaiting Ryan Winter of Sports Chat 503 to talk Oregon and Iowa. Check out the Iowa show from Tuesday with Corey Brada. And I'm also going to share some numbers from the Oregon-Iowa matchup. It's kind of strange that if you look at the last 4 matchups for each team, they have played those 4 exact teams. Those are the common opponents for Oregon and Iowa that they both played. Rutgers, Indiana, that's the big one, of course, Penn State, and somebody else, Wisconsin. So I'm going to match up those numbers between the way Oregon has performed against those 4 Big Ten opponents and Iowa. And, of course, we're going to talk college football playoff rankings and scenarios. So much appreciate Jim showing up for this one. He's been a member here at the Voice of College Football now for 12 months. Best time of year talking college football evening to you, Jim. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being a member. You can become a member here on the YouTube channel. Just go to the front page and hit the join button. You can get my selections, meaning my picks every week, both here as a premium member on YouTube, or you can go to Patreon. And that's where you can make the selections every week. So if you just want to get my picks for a particular week, I would have suggested last week that even though I got 4 bad beats against me, I still pulled out a 12-7 week against the spread. That's like 64% against the spread with 4 bad beats included. And so that will do you just fine. So check out my picks on Patreon. You can select again by the week. You get Corey Brada's selections, Matt Zemek, Steve Dace, and then also Steve Merrill with his under the radar selection, which is 35-15 against the spread. So that's a bargain on Patreon or as a premium channel member here on YouTube, or you can just be a member here on YouTube. Keep us going. And most importantly, you should know this, that the Amazon link's in the description section of this video and all the videos. When you shop on Amazon, please use the link that we provide. I'm going to do a live stream, I think, where I'm just going to post the Amazon link just with a blank screen with Amazon, the link. It's going to be in the chat. I'm going to just keep throwing it out there, the Amazon link. As I've stated during my more ornery times, if I disappear one of these days, I'm just going to put up a blank slate then as well. That's going to say, you didn't use the Amazon link. Therefore, Mark said, see ya. So we might do that. Not that anyone would care, nor would I believe that anyone would miss me on the college football landscape. Tukey G, good to see you. Karen, early birds. Yes, we got started because if you can read between the lines, maybe I want to get out of here early. I've been working since 8 a.m. and we're pushing 10 p.m. So let's do a good show. Unless I'll be here as long as you want me to be here. When it comes right down to it, I will stay as long as you'd like me to. We can arrange that as well. All right, let's get to the college football playoff rankings. The much ballyhooed rankings. And some people would argue they don't mean much right now. Don't get uptight about them. A lot of things need to be vetted. It's going to work itself out. All of those things. Well, multiple things can be true. And in this case, multiple things are true because, yes, let's not get uptight about it. However, this gives strong indication as to what the committee values and who they believe is stronger than maybe we had anticipated or not quite as strong. Ohio State, number one, they're basically saying that they've evaluated through the eye test that Ohio State's the best football team in the country. But of course, if things play out the way many of us anticipate, Ohio State and Indiana will play in the Big Ten championship game, and the winner will be the number one seed in the college football playoff. Some other things could happen, especially with Ohio State facing Michigan, and that opens up a lane for Michigan, Iowa, USC, Oregon, and others to possibly, most notably, Oregon has the most direct path to play in the Big Ten championship game, and Ohio State's still going to make the playoff. In regards to positioning, that's what it looks like. Of course, Texas A&M's got to complete the mission and win the SEC to be one of those top 3 or 4 seeds. Otherwise, it gets interesting past that. Those are the easy things to figure out. What we have after that is Alabama, Georgia, and Ole Miss teams that assuredly will be in the playoff. You got to think, although Georgia does have 2 difficult assignments that come to mind, Texas at home and Georgia Tech. So there's still a possibility that a Georgia 9-3 team could get ousted from the college football playoff. Ole Miss has Mississippi State and a few other fairly difficult games in the SEC. But if you really navigate these schedules for Alabama, Georgia, and Ole Miss, they have played their most difficult games already. Bama, if you really want to see one of these teams implode out of the SEC upper crust and miss the playoff, we're looking at Alabama playing at South Carolina this week. No, they just beat South Carolina. They're playing LSU this week. LSU, Oklahoma, at Auburn. So LSU is not going to be an easy assignment. You would not think, although they now have a coaching change and upheaval, and who knows how hard they're going to play. But we've seen that at Penn State and other places. I would expect LSU to show up. But Bama does have LSU at home. They should be a substantial favorite in that game. But they do have Oklahoma. That's a home game. They go to Auburn. The work is not done for Alabama. They're a substantial favorite to finish things off at least at 10-2. But LSU, Oklahoma, Auburn, all 3 teams are capable of beating Alabama. For Oklahoma, now sitting in the 12 spot, they have quite the opportunity because if they win out, there's no question they're going to be in the playoff with Alabama, Mizzou, and LSU. And the debate could actually be if Oklahoma wins only 2 of those 3 and finishes 9-3, they would most likely have the strongest 9-3 resume in all of college football. I really don't think there's any question about that because Oklahoma, let's say chalk prevails and Oklahoma beats Mizzou and LSU, they lose to Alabama. They would have losses against Texas, Ole Miss, and Alabama, 3 of the top 10 teams in the country, most likely. Wins against Missouri, LSU, Tennessee, Michigan. There would be an interesting conversation between a 10-2 Notre Dame team and a 9-3 Oklahoma team under those circumstances. What is Ole Miss giving us? The Rebels, to finish out the season, have the Citadel this week. Okay, they've got Florida and Mississippi State, so Ole Miss should be fine, finishing probably 11-1. But even if they lose one of those two games, they are a 10-2 football team out of the SEC, and they will be in the playoffs. So Ole Miss is about as safe as anybody in the field at this point at 8-1 with the Citadel, Florida, and Mississippi State. So that's how that stacks up in the SEC, and it's still really just too many factors to really go through all of the various scenarios. We get one more weekend in, and it narrows the scenarios significantly. That's what we're looking at right now, Justin. Does an 9-3 SEC team jump 10-2 Notre Dame? I believe that team could be Oklahoma, because that would be just one more loss, and Oklahoma's got the toughest schedule in the SEC, and they played a Michigan team outside the conference, and would really love to see Michigan finish at 10-2, which really bolsters that win. So they would be the one to do it, especially since for Alabama, Ole Miss, or Georgia to finish 9-3, they would really have to run off the rails. Ole Miss would have to lose to Florida and Mississippi State, so they would have no momentum, and they would be dissed to the oblivion and would not make the playoff. Yes, Alabama and Georgia losing two more games, although, as we stated a few minutes ago, Georgia would be losing to Texas and Georgia Tech. That's possible. This Georgia football team is not dominant. They're really good. They may have the most talented roster in college football. It's certainly in the top 3 or 4, but they're not dominant. So Georgia, in addition to Texas and Georgia Tech, Georgia also has a date against, here's the lineup for Georgia, at Mississippi State, who's been a difficult assignment for everyone, but they keep losing, but they're a difficult assignment. Mississippi State, Texas, Charlotte, and Georgia Tech. So again, Georgia's not out of the woods. They could lose 2 more. Let's turn our attention to the Big Ten and the Oregon Ducks in particular. We got Ryan Winter stopping by from Sports Chat 503. Ryan, how you doing?
Mark, my man, how are you, buddy?
Good to see you, Ryan.
Great to see you too, bud.
Sorry for the bit of a delay there.
No, you're good, man. Everything is great out here.
Audio down, but let's talk some Ducks.
Yeah.
And an intriguing college football playoff ranking. So before we get to Saturday, we might as well reverse back to Tuesday night. So it stood out that Oregon's a little better regarded among the national polls, the coaches and the AP at number 6, 7 range versus number 9 as the lowest ranked one-loss team out of the SEC or the Big Ten. And obviously it's all in front of them. They control their destiny without doubt. They could even lose a game. But what are your initial thoughts about Oregon's placing?
Pretty much kind of where we thought it was going to be. You know, I always look at it, you know, from out here on the West Coast, the SEC wants to put as many teams in there as possible. And it looks like they've got 2 teams that are outside of their 2 teams that are going into the championship game weekend. And it looks like for the Big Ten, we might have 1 team kind of waiting on the outside. And so I think in the 12-team playoff, that's actually the good place to be. Last year, after going through and being the number 1 seed and then seeing Ohio State in that buzzsaw that was in Pasadena, you know, I think it's a good thing to kind of just be back a little bit and kind of hunt from the back a little bit. And I just really like the idea of trying to get a home game. That's what I really want out of this. If the Ducks can win out, I think they'll be granted with that opportunity.
We could argue all night about which game would be the most advantageous for Oregon to lose between Iowa, USC, and Washington. They have 3 difficult games remaining. You can't throw out Minnesota, but that obviously would be the 4th of the 4. The 3 teams, those 3 are also competing for a playoff spot, not certainly within Oregon's range, but they've got a prayer. They've got to win out and hope. So do you have a thought about, okay, of course, we want the Ducks to win all their games, but if they drop one, which would be the most advantageous in your sight? Because it's a close call.
Right. I'm actually at the point now where I fear if the Ducks drop one, they're not going. And I know that might seem wild at the
That
end of
was
the
going to
year.
be the second part of my question.
Yeah, I don't see it. And I think that unless, I think they need more quality wins. They don't, the best quality win they have on their schedule right now is Northwestern, Mark. And it's not going to cut it. You know, we thought it was going to be the Penn State game. It was an absolute movie when we were out there, you know, and then all of a sudden it felt like, you know, that side of the world just fell apart. And, you know, that's going to do some real damage to the Ducks in their narrative this year. And so they need USC to still be good. They need Washington to still be good at the end of the year. And it's looking good right now. One of the things I was actually more impressed with was how they looked at those teams on the back end, Iowa included, that they put them in the top 25. Because I was really kind of worried about that with the AP. The AP was not really given any love. A lot of 6-2 teams out there. All the 6-2 teams in the SEC were getting in there, but not really from the Big Ten. So I was kind of worried about that as a Big Ten guy. Now, you know, now Mark, I'm a Big Ten guy. So now we're fully invested.
Yeah, the committee pretty much lined up those 6-2 Big Ten teams right there with me. Yeah, because the thing that you have to consider, of course, and I know that you have, is that if Iowa does drop one of these games, I would think this game at Kinnick would be the one to drop, because the committee is showing us that even though it's a resume ranking from start of the season to finish, that there is a recency bias. And so if Oregon gets this loss out of the way the first weekend of November, or technically the second, and then they finish strong with wins against Washington and USC, and obviously the Ducks are going to hope that USC and Washington are as strong as they possibly can be from a record standpoint, then I think that looks better as a good closing run, rather than, you know, maybe losing to USC or losing the rivalry game to Washington and really slipping up. And then obviously those teams have to play difficult games as well. So you're right. If they lose one, then they're really on a slippery slope, not just in justifying their own wins, but having those remaining teams that are good teams maintain their good records is going to be difficult, because as you well know, there's a round robin working here in the last part of the season between Oregon plays USC, USC plays Iowa, Iowa plays Oregon. So they all play each other.
Yeah, it's going to be a wild end of the season. I mean, and that's what people wanted. I mean, conference realignment, we wanted better games. We wanted more games that mattered down the stretch. And obviously, these games matter down the stretch. And there's no gimmies. There's no bye game. There's no bye week. You know, we're done with the bye week. We're ready to go. I think this is going to be a fantastic month. And I actually think the Ducks are poised to win out. I really believe it. I think we've seen really good football from this team. Yes, we've seen them maybe not perform at the highest of highs this year, but we've really never seen them perform at the lowest of lows. And they haven't really come out with a really bad game. Indiana played a really good game against Oregon, and it was still a close game. It was like, oh, they just took them, you know, behind the woodshed. It was a 10-point game. It was, and late were those points to stretch it to a 10-point game. So I think in reality, I really like Indiana, because I think they play a really complete brand of football. I think for Oregon, they need to be able to piece together a really good offensive game and a good defensive game in the same game. And I think they can play with anybody in the country. I still believe that. But confidence is waning a little bit. I mean, after that Indiana loss, you know, you had a good game against Rutgers, but kind of struggled in the rain against Wisconsin. And, you know, you have some questions going into this Iowa game. Iowa, it does what they do well, and I don't know if Oregon does the counter to that very well. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I think that these teams aren't quite to their nth degree end of the spectrum stereotype, because when we saw this on the schedule, of course, it's Iowa It's at Kinnick Stadium. They're going to try to slow down the game. They're going to play great defense. Phil Parker's one of the best in the business, and special teams are airtight, and they got one of the best return men that we've seen in recent years. And all of that, all the stereotypes still work for Iowa, but they are better offensively. Not good, but they're top 40 in the country in scoring offense. Now, they're not churning out the yards. And Oregon, flash and dash and all of that, they are a more physical team than they are given credit for. So maybe these teams are a little bit more to this center than we play it out to be. It's going to be fascinating, and we're going to see Oregon playing in Kinnick Stadium. This is one of these matchups that we envisioned when the Pac-12 4 were joined to the Big Ten.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think these are the places that we want to go to as well. I mean, these are some of the cathedrals of college football. The Big Ten has all the history, and Oregon does not really have that kind of history. So Oregon's trying to make their brand new history in the Big Ten. I think they started off well. They just need to close it out this year. I really believe that the schedule is set up beautifully for them. If they can be the team that doesn't have to go to Indianapolis, I think that's going to really benefit this team to not have that extra game, to be able to sit and wait a little bit and possibly able to have a home game. I think that really starts the momentum that you're going to need for this playoff run, because the playoffs seem like kind of like their own little mini season.
We got Ryan Winter on the line from Sports Chat 503. Please check it out. It's right here on YouTube. It's only a click away. Talking Oregon Ducks and sizing up this Iowa football team, and the big matchup at Kinnick Stadium should be very intriguing. The Ducks are a 6-point favorite. So the weekend that the Ducks went to Happy Valley and won that game, and obviously our perception of Penn State was much different at that point, I got on here immediately after the game and said, I usually say, these are the storylines, these are the narratives, this is what we found out this week, and it's focused on teams. But I focused it on Dante Moore because they said, finally, we got to see what this kid is made of, because, in college football time, it seems like it was forever that he was a 5-star coming out of high school, signed at UCLA, got like spot duty there. Then, of course, sat for a season under Dylan Gabriel at Oregon. Now we finally get to see him, and he lights up the world, but it's against Oklahoma State and some middling competition in the big. So finally he gets the showcase game, and lo and behold, he's as good as advertised, and he really is a top-flight quarterback.
Yeah, and that's what we all thought as well, and I think we still do. I think we still believe he's a very unique player, and I think, when we like to point fingers as fans, some people like to point fingers immediately at offensive coordinator, right? It's one of the first picks. Will Stein was everybody's favorite offensive coordinator one week. How can he be that bad the next week? So I think you have to tip the cap to the opposition. I think the people coming out to play at Oregon, and they're pulling out all the stops. I think there is a blueprint out there to how to slow down this team and keep everything in front of you. And Oregon will kind of play into that. I mean, even in the Indiana game, they were running the ball pretty well, and they kind of went away from it and went to the screen passes and got hung up in 3rd and long. And it was kind of a pin your ears back kind of moment. I think it played into that Indiana defense that's lighter, that likes to fly around. Everybody talks about how Oregon was bigger in the trenches. That doesn't mean anything when those guys are coming on a spin move on your tackle and collapsing that pocket. So Dante Moore, when he has a clean pocket and he has room to work, great quarterback, man. He can put it on it. He can throw the deep ball. But I don't think Oregon has really stretched the vertical passing game enough this year. If I could have one complaint there, and I think they've leaned in, a little bit too much on the screen passes. Have a lot of great athletes at Oregon, and there's a lot of really good speed on the edges. So I get why they want to get those guys the ball in space. But these defenses, I think, are a little keen to it. And so I think it's going to be a tough run the rest of the way. But I don't think after the Iowa game, I don't think there's going to be a defense the rest of the way until the playoffs that would test Iowa on that level, because I think Iowa is going to be the best defense on the schedule.
Of course, DeCorian Moore is a weapon. Evan Stewart was lost in the offseason leading into the season opener. Kenyon Sadiq is a top tight end, and he's a weapon and a mismatch for a lot of defenses. I notice at the running back position, And I got to admit, I've probably watched less Oregon football this year than I would normally have at this season, just at this point in the season, just because of the competition.
Sure.
I wasn't going to waste my time with 66-3 or whatever it was against Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
The Penn State game, I was doing other things, but I locked in on fourth quarter and overtime, and that's been pretty much, I started watching the Wisconsin game, and anyway, what I wanted to hit on was the running back position. When I looked at the stats, I'm seeing like 4 guys with 40 carries, including the quarterback, Dante Moore. What's happened with the running back room? Because we're familiar with Noah Whittington, and he's got a great yards per carry average. Has he been nicked up?
Yeah, so kind of a wild running back room. Super deep. 2 freshmen that are probably your 2 best players in the room at this point. Kind of a thunder and lightning that we really didn't know we were going to get. We had high hopes. Noah came back off the injury last year and was out for most of the whole year last year. The knee injury. Came back and kind of was one of those guys who senior year going to get the starting nod. Really good player out of the backfield, catching the ball, really good, turn, plant your foot type of guy. Good in space, maybe not as good between the tackles, but still pretty good between the tackles. Then you have Jaden Lamar, who was the backup, who is kind of more of the muscle hamster type, strong running back, just an absolute bull, but still a little bit light on his feet. Everybody has to be a little bit light on their feet in this running game. And then you have the 2 freshmen, and the 2 freshmen is Jordan Davidson and Deir Hill. And both these guys, I think, represent kind of the future of Oregon. This Oregon team is very young. A lot of really young players. And these 2 players right now, they're the best running backs. And I don't know which one's better at any given time, but Jordan Davidson has come out right away and been the heavier back, scored a lot of touchdowns really early on, but also has broken off some pretty good yardage as well through the line of scrimmage, has got nice patience, waits for the block to open up, and then really gets after it. So I just love the energy of the young guys. And, you got Dante Moore, like you said, who hasn't played a lot. I mean, he's been around and he's been practicing for years. He's been involved with programs for years, but on the field, putting up real tape. And so now he's got an opportunity to be with Decorian Moore, who's a really good freshman wide receiver, 2 really good freshman running backs. And I think the sky's the limit for the Ducks.
I am not selling the Iowa offense as prolific in any such way. However, it's at least functional. This has been a team, and I don't know how much you've paid attention from your Pac-12 situation out there, but it's
West
just
Coast bias.
the most ludicrous situation for 3 to 4 years at Iowa, where the defense almost outscored the offense. And with the defense and the special teams, like the offense routinely in the bottom of 3 or 4 in the nation, and they're fielding, top 3 defenses. It's just the strangest dichotomy anywhere in football, year after year after year. Finally, they've somewhat broken out of that, still have the great defense and special teams, but the quarterback is at least functional, and he's a running threat. How does Oregon do against running quarterbacks? Because this Mark Gronowski had 130 yards against Penn State on the ground.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting. I think Oregon has had some trouble in their run fits a little bit, especially that outside zone. And I know these guys like to go with that, and they like to kind of freeze those edge players a little bit. I think going into the season, I think people were very high on the defensive ends. And I think that like people often do with us, we love to talk all summer. We just build up such hype. We build up such high expectations. And we go off of some really good things that happened last year. And one example is Mateo Uyunglele had 10 sacks last year, led the Big Ten. And I think at this point in time, Oregon maybe only has like 13 sacks as a team. So hasn't really got the same sort of production off the edges that we kind of thought. 2 really good players, Tatum Teote on one side and Mateo Uyunglele on the other side. Really good players. But they've also done a little bit more to try to get in the run fit, containment instead of going after. And also you have to understand, there were some really good guys on that defensive line last year for Oregon. They all went to the NFL. So you got I think for Oregon, you got to believe you can get up there and stop the run against Iowa, at least try to make them at least one-dimensional if you can. I think they actually pass the ball better than people give them credit for. From what I've watched, they've hit the open man. It might be some short stuff, but they've been able to get over the top a couple of times. They just don't do it that often, and they don't have to because they have such a good running game, and they're probably the best offensive line in the country. So, I mean, you're talking about a variety of things that are kind of working against the Ducks, but I would hope that the Ducks' athleticism, the Ducks' abilities to use speed and space might be able to equalize some of that and be able to get out and break a couple plays. But I do think it's going to be a low scoring game, and I do think it's going to be close late in the fourth quarter.
And this has been missed by some. The team that by far gave Indiana its toughest game, 13 all with 90 seconds left in the game, Iowa, Indiana. And Iowa starting quarterback Mark Rodowski missed the entire fourth quarter, and his backup was not good.
No.
Like, there was a significant dropout. I'm not going to make some kind of crazy call that such and such would have happened, but you never know. Iowa, without its starting quarterback, they missed a screen pass that probably would have been a touchdown to take a touchdown lead with about 2 minutes left in that game. Then they missed the field goal. And because of the game situation, they sold out on defense, and that led to the game-winning touchdown. So Iowa played Indiana to the hilt. So that's our one comparison of a game. At this point, actually, we've got other ones. It's kind of funny if you look at the schedule. They both played Rutgers, Penn State, and Wisconsin as well just in the last few weeks. So we've got 4 common opponents, and I've actually done the math on that. So we'll get to that a little bit later. Ryan, we appreciate you being here. We want to get everyone on over to Sports Chat 503. Any particular videos or live streams you'd like to point people to?
Oh, man, we always do the live stream Tuesday nights, 5:30 on the Pacific Coast time. That's always a fun one. We do about 2 hours usually during the regular season. Sometimes it can stretch to 3 hours. We have a lot of fun. Built a really good community out here, real positive. Sports Chat 503 Familia, which you're a part of, Mark, by the way. Again, love what you do for college football. Can't thank you enough. But yeah, I just do videos. Each week I cover the Ducks. I'm not a media guy. I'm a fan. I'm a dad. My son goes there. My whole family's from there. My whole family went there. And yeah, I just love what we do. And I go to as many games as possible. And I try to have as much fun as possible. So what's wrong with that, right, Mark?
We appreciate you, Ryan. I always love, that you love the Pac-12, even though it's now defunct, that you love your Oregon Ducks, but give total respect to the opponent and all of college football. You love the history, the traditions, and just absorb it and want your team so badly to win, but still do it with a great attitude and great respect for the opponent. So, Ryan, I love what you do. It's always great to chat with you.
Thanks so much, Mark. You're the best. Appreciate you. Thank you guys very much. We'll see you next time.
Great stuff from Ryan Winter again. Sports Chat 503. Auburn on the other end of it in regards to importance of games. I don't even know who Auburn's playing this week. It's more important who's going to be their next head coach. We got Kyle Loomis here to break it down for us with, of course, Hugh Freeze hearing the boos, hearing the cat calls for one last time in a game in which the Auburn Tigers could only score 3 points at home against Kentucky. Kyle Loomis, E2C Network.
Yeah, just rub it in. Why don't you? No, it was, having been there myself, that was quite an ending to the Hugh Freeze tenure. It was not fun. It was not entertaining. Now, as we always continue to say about the Auburn experience, it's so much deeper than just sports and football and stuff. But the Auburn family continued to show up for a matchup that already wasn't supposed to be good, and it proved it wasn't good. And then everything else that occurred during and after the game. We sit here, Mark, for the third time in 5 years, on a transition for Auburn football. It's been rough since the old firing of Gus Malzahn.
Gus Malzahn made it to a BCS national championship game in which he came within 10 or 12 seconds of winning the national championship in 2013, just 3 years after Auburn won the other national championship, of course, with Gene Chizik and Cam Newton. They go to an SEC championship game in 2017 after they beat 2 number 1 teams in the span of 3 weeks. And Gus Malzahn, other than those 2 high points, was chugging along 9-4, 8-5, but nothing too disastrous. And I think finished at 6-4 in that pandemic year. Mm-hmm. and they would love to see 8-5 and 9-4 now at Auburn. And we've gone through 4 consecutive losing seasons. Maybe this would be the 5th consecutive losing season. 21, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Ouch.
It would be 4. This will be 4 if they actually end up, because the first, actually, no, now that I'm thinking about it, see, I've tried to blank it all out.
1, 2, 3,
yeah,
4,
no, it
5.
doesn't
I think
matter.
I get you covered, Kyle. I think that's 5 consecutive losing
right.
seasons
You're
for
right.
Auburn.
You're right. You're right. And now that I've just tried to block it out at this point.
I never thought I would make that statement. And we're in an off season, as you well know, where the competition for top flight head coaches is pretty fierce. Florida State might be open. Florida is open. Penn State, LSU, and on down the line. So what is the reasonable wish list that these Auburn fans have?
Well, first, let's address what you said there. The challenge for Auburn was that, do you get into this race? Is it best just to ride this thing out and let Hugh Freeze continue to figure it out?
Yep.
I do think there was a case you could make for that. The problem is that Kentucky game. Sometimes it's not who you lose to, it's the way you lose to them. And that was awful. And I am not somebody who is going to sit here and dog Hugh Freeze. I think he did a lot for the program, given what he found, the state he found it in. But it's inexcusable. What happened on Saturday night is inexcusable, on top of the other context of that. So that, just to address that part of it. But to answer your larger question, who's on the list? We are so early in this, in a world of LSU, Florida, Penn State, maybe others, as you address, coming into the market here. Who is Auburn? Who does Auburn want, and who can Auburn get are two separate questions. I'm not going to sit here and act like Auburn is the most desirable job out there, as big a homer as I am, but I do think it's one of the most desirable jobs out there that you can find. We can debate on which one that is. Right now, if you're asking most people talking about the Auburn job, the name you're going to hear is Sumrall out of Tulane. Ties back to Troy, the success he had there. So he's been in the state of Alabama, familiarity, all that, works into his favor. From what I understand, a defensive guy. And I frankly would probably welcome a change to a defensive-minded head coach just for a little bit. Let's do something different, It hadn't been working out so much with at the end of the Gus Malzahn era. Harsin was more of an offensive guy, and so was Hugh Freeze. So maybe that's the change there. But you're going to see every amount of names. Lane Kiffin. You're seeing Kenny Dillingham is, I think, got an increasing amount of fan support out of Arizona. He's formerly been at Auburn. So the list just continues to grow about the opportunities and option Auburn has. The question is who do they want and who wants to be with them at this point? But if you're just going to play it this early in the game, I think the name that makes, I guess, sense, John Sumrall out of Tulane.
So I would think that football people, and I'm not talking about coaches and scouts, I'm talking about fans that really love football and are there regardless of wins and losses and really study the game and watch the game. I'm not talking about fringe fans, and those people are fine too, that just like to watch the games, but they want to hear a name. They want to hear a name that they can tie to another major job and say, well, he got it done there, so great. And obviously John Sumrall, especially when being compared in this offseason to who LSU gets and Florida gets, you would hope that the administration, at least I should speak for myself here, would make what they believe is the best decision of the best man, the best football coach, and not think, oh, we have to get a name that's going to compete with the Florida or LSU name because we're in this world of social media and pleasing fan bases and boosters, with an emphasis on boosters and NIL. So do you have a feel for what the reaction would be if it is a Sumrall and LSU and Florida are out there getting, I don't know, who knows, that's a bigger name?
So a couple things there. You talked about fans. Who do they want? Who do the boosters want? John Cohen, our AD, made it very clear in his press conference addressing the change and what was going to happen after this point that this is his decision, that no one else is good. There's no search committee. That he was even asked if the powers that be, the boosters, are going to influence him, and he pushed back on that narrative that it even exists. And I think sometimes that idea, that boogeyman of boosters, is a little overplayed. To act like there isn't some influence there, I think, is a little bit naive. But to not act like there's an influence is naive. But it is overplayed a little bit into a boogeyman type scenario. But he made it very clear this is going to be his decision. I don't know that the big name hire is what Auburn needs / what everybody would be the most happy with. I think everybody is wanting. There's this notion of finding the right fit, right? Because it felt like, and I even talked about this on our stream when Hugh Freeze was fired. I think Hugh Freeze was the right guy at the wrong time. I really wonder what if he doesn't walk into a decimated program. That this would have been much different. And also, I mean, not to say that this was the biggest impact on everything, but the guy was also going through some health things too. I think that certainly has to play a role in anything in life, much less your job. So I think right person, wrong time, unfortunately, with him, whereas Harsin was wrong place, wrong time, or wrong person, wrong place, all wrong all the way around. I think we can look at that and say that. John Sumrall, I think, right now, if you talk about culture, if you talk about feeling, maybe Auburn is where most people are going to go to. But I'll just be honest with you. I don't really have a guy that fits that for me personally at this current time. And we are so early in this. I went around it a bunch there, but I hope I answered the question for you. Is there any part of that I missed that you were looking for?
Not really. You're good, Kyle, because Sumrall is a leading candidate. What ends up happening in a lot of these situations is you go online, you can Google it, and 47 different locations, I'm underestimating it, actually have their lists of who the candidates are. Then it turns out to be somebody that nobody anticipated,
right?
That gets the job.
Brian Harsin.
Yeah, Brian Harsin. Exactly. Out of Boise State. Wow.
I will never forget sitting here in my office, and that was sent to me before the headline went out from somebody in the know. And I said, "Excuse me? What's going on there?" Anyway, yeah. So
who did a great job at Boise State, but just never worked there on the Plains. What fascinates me about these situations, and we just got done with a Florida State show a couple hours ago talking about Mike Norvell's situation, and he's for as bad as Florida State's been this year, he is a dropped pass in the end zone and a official replay call of a guy being pushed at the goal line with the ball. Did it break the plane from being not 4-4, being 6-2? And
sounds familiar.
Nobody's talking about. They're saying, Florida State's not great, but they're just not paying attention. Auburn, yes, I think, and I stated this to you a couple weeks ago, I think Auburn's been the most unlucky team in college football. 3 games that just seem as though fate just destined that they were going to lose regardless of what anybody did, that it was just going to be taken away from them. Otherwise, we'll forget the Kentucky game. We'll take it back a week. What are they right now? 4-5?
4-5, yeah.
4-5. They were 4-4. They're this close to being 7-1. Even say they drop one of them, this close to being 6-2. And we're not talking about this. And Hugh Freeze is the coach, and people are okay, and nobody's jumping through the ceiling saying Hugh Freeze is the next Nick Saban and we're set, but people are satisfied with the season. And actually, they are in the college football playoff rankings right now, and we're having a conversation about, well, if they win out, they're going to make the playoffs. That's how tenuous this is. It's crazy.
I 100% agree. You're saying the trigger word for Auburn fans right now is close, and they got tired of hearing Hugh Freeze say that. And there's been a lot
I get it.
that going on this week. Yes.
But there are those situations where Scott Frost at Nebraska, it's just disaster. And then
Right.
you have, again, this Mike Norvell situation and others, James Franklin. Oh my goodness. You talk about close. And now Hugh Freeze. It's just, I'm fascinated with basically you could make a case that nothing he did, he could be the exact same coach, making the exact same decisions, doing absolutely nothing different himself. But if officials or players, I'll emphasize again, officials do make different judgments, different calls, and he's the same exact guy. He has a job at Auburn, and we're talking about Auburn pushing for the college football playoff. It's crazy.
I mean, that's what's so weird about this season, Mark, is how the dichotomy of how close, sorry, Auburn fans, you were in against these major opponents, and some of them you had leads in the waning moments of the game. And then the Kentucky game happens, and you're just like,
oh yeah,
what happened? Like what is, how did we get from there to here? You know, you got to the point of it just seemed like it wasn't supposed to be for Auburn and Hugh Freeze. And I'll be honest with you, it kind of feels that way sitting here right now. But you know, putting that all to the side, it's done at this point. It's not great, and obviously Auburn's got to figure out how to not lose the momentum that was built by Hugh Freeze and bolstering this roster back to where it needed to be. Who that guy is anybody's guess at this point. There's not really a name that, you know, here's a, people will play the game of like, if I could have anybody, you know, type of scenario. The only name that someone just happened to mention to me, wasn't even thinking about, that really excited me, and this is just speculation, there's not me trying to say I know something, you know, Marcus Freeman out of Notre Dame. There's been chances, as I understand it, for Marcus in his time before he became a head coach to make his way to Auburn if he had chose to do that. Don't know if that's 100% true, but to me, that is a name that the only one that kind of intrigued me. But right now, a lot of the coaching options out there come with a little bit of baggage. You know, Lane Kiffin and Auburn were tied together. There's some baggage there, I think. I think he's entertaining, but it's Lane Kiffin. Kenny Dillingham is another one that people are talking about at Arizona State because of his ties back to Auburn. He's a young guy, very up and coming. Had Arizona State in the playoffs last year. So, you know, there's some things that could probably make sense and work for options out there. The question is, when is it going to happen? When are we going to know? And will it be because LSU chose first, or Penn State chose first, or this, that? You know, we're so early in this game, Mark. I feel like you and I are going to be updating on this quite frequently here.
The most unprecedented string of high-profile head coaching vacancies in an off-season, I believe, in history. Somebody could check me on that, but certainly I believe so. In terms of knowing, now at the last second, Lincoln Riley left Oklahoma and went to USC, and then Brian Kelly left Notre Dame, but they weren't like open for a month where we're like, right, look at all these jobs that are open. No, those were closed, open and closed, gone.
Yep.
Crazy.
Wild
Kyle
times.
Loomis, E2C Network, the Auburn family. So it's everything Auburn, not just football, athletics across the board. There's, of course, basketball season coming. Kyle, anything in particular you'd like to highlight?
No, we do post-game streams for basketball if anybody's interested in that. And even with Bruce Pearl gone, the Pearl era continues, just in a new format with his son. And that has already been quite entertaining if you followed the first game. A little overreaction there for some Auburn fans, but it's still good. And then some other time, Mark, we'll have to talk about this announcement today that Auburn and Notre Dame have announced a home and home series for the future, because that was brand new news today. So we can certainly get together another time and talk about that. But I'm very excited about that. There's always great stuff to talk about on our channel, whether it's Auburn sports, Auburn culture, Auburn family stuff. It's the full Auburn experience.
Those two schools have never played, at least during my
Never.
Okay,
before.
they've never played, period.
No,
okay. I was going to say,
so
at least
pumped.
since I've been watching, I keep track of those things.
Yeah.
All right. Kyle, appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Mark.
All right. Let's get to the calls. It's that time, and we've got 8 minutes. And I got to get to these super chats. And once I get to the super chats, who knows? Maybe we've got more than 8 minutes. I don't know. Again, we've got Jim here. Thank you for being here, Jim. All right, Adam, thank you so much for the contribution, sir. The playoff committee rankings include teams that have played 8 games and others that have played 9. So why not just start a 2014 playoff now? I'm not making the connection between just because some teams have already had their 2 bye weeks and others have had 1, what that has to do with needing a 2014 playoff. What exactly do 3 more weeks prove that would be more reliable? Adam, you're smarter than I am. We could play 2 weeks and then have a playoff and decide it based on the 2 games played. Well, what are we going to find out in the next 3 to 4 games? Well, generally, I don't even know how to answer that except for the obvious. What we were going to find out, that would be like saying Ohio State played Texas, Michigan and Oklahoma played. And did anyone else in the SEC and the Big Ten play? Alabama played Wisconsin. Okay. We had those 3 games. The Big Ten won 2, I believe. No, the SEC won 2 and the Big Ten won 1. Well, the SEC must be better than the Big Ten. They played 3 games. What could we possibly find out if they played more games against each other? What could we possibly find out? We know that the SEC is better than the Big Ten because they won 2 out of 3 games. We're going to find out a lot. Oregon's playing Iowa Saturday night. USC has a game against Oregon and Iowa. And Oregon plays Washington. And all those teams are 6-2 in the Big Ten. And that's just one conference. Oh, my goodness. We have a logjam at the top of the ACC with 1-loss teams. These teams are playing each other, some of them. That's what we're going to find out. I don't want to see 24 teams playing. I don't want to see Illinois in a playoff after they lost to Indiana by 9 touchdowns and lost to Ohio State by 3 touchdowns and lost another game to Washington by 17 points. I don't want to see Illinois. They didn't earn it. I don't want to see the likes of those kind of teams playing in a playoff. 12 is fine. I'm good with 12. If we go to 16, I'll be okay with that. In a sense, I'll be a little bit better with that because of the no buys. But then that cancels out the legitimacy and the importance of the conference championship game. So you got to do something with that. Right now, I'm okay with 12 because it gives legitimacy to the conference championship games, because although those aren't exactly where the buys come from this season, that's going to go a long way to determining the buys. So hopefully I answered that question well. Because Oregon, okay, the season's over right now. Oregon's 7-1. Their best win is against Northwestern. What do we know about Oregon? No, but in the last 4 weeks, they're the worst team that Oregon plays the last 4 weeks is better than their best win. Minnesota is the worst team that Oregon's playing the rest of the season, Adam. And their best win is Northwestern. They're going to play Minnesota, Washington, Iowa, and somebody else that I'm missing. Oregon's got 4 pretty difficult football games. Washington, USC, Minnesota, Iowa. There we go. All right. Adam, thanks for being here. And your super chat is much appreciated. BYU has no class. They barely beat a silly Arizona team. They did win the game, yet you refuse to condemn their number 7 ranking. I refuse. What is BYU in my rankings? I got to check them out. I think I've got them more like number 12 or something like that. the rankings that count, at least in my household, the rankings that count, the top 25 that actually makes sense. We've got BYU at I've got them at 8. So I'm only one behind the so I've got them at 8. Okay. BYU has a win against Utah and Iowa State. Obviously, they haven't lost a game. They're only one of 4 teams in America that have not lost a game. So thank you for that. Oh, I didn't finish. Also, we should only rank the top 11 teams. The 12 teams should be decided by a nationwide vote of college football fans, which Adam brought that to my attention, his suggestion right there, which I think is fascinating. If it wasn't so gimmicky, I would agree with it because I think it would be funny, fascinating, interesting to see who would win a vote. Because if you just left it wide open, who's the most popular blue blood popular team? Maybe Clemson. Maybe they just vote for Clemson. Say we just want to see Clemson play. Or we just want to see LSU, even though they're 7-5, they're going to be in the playoff. Or, you know what's a good one? Those aren't good examples. Maybe last year, you know who would have won a fan poll? You know who would have won a fan poll last year that missed the playoff? If we would have had a fan poll, not necessarily Alabama, not necessarily Ole Miss or South Carolina, the 3 teams that just barely missed it, or Miami, who was 10-2. You know who would have won a fan poll last year? Deion Sanders and Shadur Sanders and Travis Hunter. And we would have had Colorado in the playoff, losing 42-10 to Notre Dame. All right, there we go. Now we've got 1 minute left. So, actually, we're going to go 20 seconds. Whatever you got, Darrell, it's all yours.
UMass to the playoffs, Mark. That'd be my vote. I want to see UMass be represented in the playoffs. Let's get them in there. Let's get some representation for some schools that don't do it, Mark. I mean, that would be just great to see. Mark, did you go back and read any of your chat last night about your playoff rankings and all that?
No, I typically get nauseated reading the chat live.
Just go back and read some of the hilarious comments. Big Ten man down bad as always, saying things like if 4 SEC teams get in, there can't be a 5th one. The 4th Big Ten team needs to get in for some reason, and all this silliness. I mean, they're down bad, Mark. They're down bad. I saw Joe Klatt today saying a 9-3 Texas team is absolutely going to make the playoffs. That was his biggest takeaway. Can Big Ten man explain to me Joel Klatt's SEC bias? Can you explain that to me, Mark, for me?
Yeah, I can't. This is not the night necessarily for me to try to play that role either. So
I understand. Listen. Big Ten, you know how Big Ten man is. They're down bad, Mark. And I kind of feel sorry for them because they're probably only going to get 2 teams in the playoffs. Because they don't understand you actually have to win games on the field. If Oregon loses, which they probably will, because they're going to be, 70-30 favorites in the next 3 games? And if you're 70-30 favorites in 3 games, you're statistically likely to lose one of those games. So they're probably going to lose a game, which means they're probably going to be left out of the playoffs because they're going to be ranked behind Notre Dame, and Notre Dame's hanging on by a thread.
This is exactly what I was trying to explain to our buddy. I believe it was Hall of Fame Trey last week about the ACC scenario when he was thinking all these teams are just going to win the rest of their games. And I'm saying, average teams like Virginia and Duke and Georgia Tech, when they're lined up with 70-30 odds for 4 consecutive weeks, most likely they're going to lose a game. And that's what we saw last week.
Yeah. Congrats to Iowa, by the way. They're going to beat Oregon this week, Mark. And the reason I say that is Iowa's played better against common opponents than Oregon has. You can cry about it all you want, but preseason bias is affecting Oregon. And the fact is, of who we think they are is impacting it. And their win against Penn State, that's their best win, is Penn State, a horrendous Big Ten team. Okay? You know who's getting screwed over by bias? It's not SEC bias, Big Ten bias, it's brand bias. Why is Vanderbilt 15th? Why is Indiana 2? Indiana has played much better than Ohio State throughout the entirety of the season. and has had much better game control by clobbering their opponents than Ohio State.
Yep.
Same thing with Vanderbilt. Why is Vanderbilt 15th? They've played much better teams than teams like Utah and have been much better teams than teams like Utah have. You know, they beat Texas, right? They played on the field, and Vanderbilt and Texas were in a close game. Was that correct?
You're talking to the wrong guy. I got Vandy 10. I got Indiana number 1. I got Ohio State 3.
Okay. I just don't get it, Mark. I don't get it. But, you know, apparently it's all these things aren't facts or evidence, or they're just propaganda to people. You know how it is. If you don't say what people want to hear, then it's propaganda because it's against. It's easier just to dismiss it whole cloth than actually take on arguments from the other side. Because let's be honest, last year when the SEC had a quote unquote down year, Big Ten man actually talked about results on the field. You know, like Illinois beating South Carolina in the bowl game, Michigan beating Alabama in the bowl game. What do they have this year? It's all rigged. The refs are rigging the games. The rivalry games mean it doesn't. The Iowa State-Iowa game doesn't matter. And you think these are silly comments? These are comments I've seen today, Mark, in your chat today.
Yes, that Iowa State comment, I highlighted that, so you may have missed that, but I posted it, and I have no words for that. That is one of the stupidest comments I've heard in a long. And I hear and read through the comments to my videos and live streams after the fact, and maybe I'm upsetting or offending a lot of people out there, and I'm sorry, but I have great respect for some of you are like plumbers, carpenters, lawyers, whatever you do. That's what you do well. This is what I do well. And part of it, unfortunately, is exposing your stupidity about college football. Just like if I went on your job and I watched you in a courtroom and I raised a lot of stupid questions, you'd say, you're an idiot. What are you talking about? This is what I'm saying to College Football Nation. Many of you concerning college football are morons. But that again, that's fine. This is your fandom. Just like if I went to your job, I wouldn't know what the hell was going on either.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they just say things and they just make wild claims up like Iowa would beat Alabama. That was said in the chat today. Iowa would beat Alabama. As if we just know this for sure. Iowa's just clearly head and shoulders over Alabama, Mark.
Yeah, I always love those. They would beat them. Now, of course, we can say that about certain matchups, but those aren't.
Yeah, if I said Oklahoma would beat UMass.
Yes.
That's basically a fact.
Sure.
Like, we have enough statistical evidence based on every game that has been played for the last 30 years.
Yes.
And their program quality
that matter that we're debating. Yes. Nobody can say this team would beat that team. I always love this team beat that team, but we know that if they played again, they'd win. Like I saw a Michigan comment last night. Oh, well, if they played Oklahoma again, they'd win. What is this based on? What kind of garbage is that based on? Bryce Underwood has looked like complete garbage the last 2 weeks. Michigan is no better today than they were when they got their butts kicked against Oklahoma. And for some complete idiot to say they would win if they played Oklahoma again, you are a complete moron. And that's fine. You're a fan. Be a moron. But we try to bring people back to reality here and just face the truth and face reality and reasonable discussion.
Oh, yeah.
That's stupid.
But Big Ten man doesn't have reasonable discussion. I literally look at the last comment posted about this, and the comment says, I bet the dude talking can't do 25 push-ups. Big Ten man. What's that have to do with anything, Big Ten man? Big Ten man, come on. They're just down horrendous, Mark. You know why? Because they lose all their mediocrity games, and their mediocre opponents aren't that good, and they got exposed. And now they just be like, man, only 2 teams are going to get into the playoffs, and the SEC is going to get 5 or 6. Oh, no, it's all bias. It's all rigged. No, it's your conference isn't that good. Your conference doesn't have that much depth. Your conference is probably going to get as many as the Big 12. And I had to take it on the chin the entirety of last year about the SEC maybe being the second best conference. It was an arguable debate. You all might be the third best conference this year, Big Ten man.
And you, DeReal, based on you bringing it here on a nightly basis for years and years and years, I have deemed you with a lot of credibility because we've had these discussions and you know what you're talking about and you look at the metrics and but you are an SEC fan, so we'll establish that you're an SEC fan. But I am stating I'm the kid who at 8 years old was rooting for every Big Ten team to win bowl games. And at 18 years old, and you know what? At 28 years old, I have my whole life rooted for the Big Ten. But facts are facts. Now, let's also understand the Big Ten only played 14 out of conference games. So, yes, if Ohio State would have gotten the chance to play Oklahoma and Alabama, and we don't know. I think they're pretty good. I think they would have handled themselves well. And we could have seen USC play Texas A&M. We could have seen all sorts of different matchups. So, yes, 14 games is a small sample size, but the facts are that the Big Ten did not take care of business in 14 games. They lost 8 of them, and the SEC won 12 of 16. They got the job done. So that's all we have to work with. And the SEC outplayed the Big Ten substantially.
Right. And I don't know what the people want. I was arguing with Troy V all night. He's like, I tell him I use odds, predictive models, and results on the field to determine my opinions. What else do you want me to use ideally to say this is what I should be looking at? I honestly want to know. If I can't use odds, predictive models based to determine like playoff chances, results, and who's more likely to get in, and then results on the field, what do you want me to use? Do you want me to just use your narrative, your wishcraft, your last year's results? Like I've seen people say, well, who won the championship in 2024? SEC hasn't won the championship in 2 years. Mark, why does this matter? Why does who win? You know what? This might blow your mind. The Big Ten will probably win the championship this year, and they're still might be the third best conference in America.
That is possible. Sure.
And why would that be, Mark?
A lot of people can't put those two things together either. Clemson was the best team in America at least 2 years in the last 10 or 11, but the ACC certainly wasn't the best conference.
Yeah. Were they even the second best conference?
No.
No.
Yes.
And it's as likely right now, I would say, based on the rankings, that the Big 12 gets 2 and the Big 10 gets 2. Because all has to happen in the Big 12. BYU, Texas Tech split. They're both getting in the college football playoff. Especially if Texas Tech BYU wins the first game and Texas Tech wins the second game. A 12-1 BYU team's in the college football playoff.
All right, Darrell, you got me fired up, and that kept me going here. But we're going to let you go.
Yeah, hey, that's what I like doing, getting people fired up, getting the debate going and discussion going. You know, Mark, just sometime make a video, just go through the live stream comments and just react to the comments of what people say. You know how you had your bottom 10 list? Just put bottom 10 comments and just go through like the weekly live stream and say this person said this thing and it makes no sense, and just go off on them for like 5 minutes.
Thanks, Darrell.
Yeah, no problem.
So that brings this to light. I'll just explain this in about 15 seconds. I used to be here like all the time, full time, all the time, cranking out videos, cranking out live streams. This was my job. This is what I did. I devoted myself to the voice of college football. I was the voice of college football. Boom. Thought I could do this as well or better than anyone. But now I'm spending my entire day doing other things. So I do not keep up with this. And that's why we go to time limits, because my time is spent better doing other things and making money. But you know what I will do for the real MVP? Let me see if I can pull this off here. Let's Darrell, this is for you. And can everyone hear me since I unplugged this mic, but I reset it here? Yeah, exactly. David, I think I'll do 25 push-ups for the real. Can everybody hear me? Can you hear me? Okay. We're going to give it 25. Let's get a decent angle. So we don't want to make this obscene in any way, do we? Not especially. Okay. And I worked out just like 2 hours ago. So that did not warm me up. It wore me down. So kind of got a corner of the wall there. It's going to be kind of difficult. Let's go about right there. How about there? Here we go. 1, 2, 4, 5, 8, 10, 11, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, My pec muscles really hurting. 22, 23, 20, 25. So we keep going. 26, 27, 28. Yeah, 32 for a 32 team playoff, right? Maybe 33. 30. I don't know. That's good enough. All right. There's your 25 push-ups plus 10. There we go. Yes. Between us, I tore my pec muscle about a year ago, and it's not in the best of shape. It's very tight and sore. So I take it easy, and I never do push-ups anymore. They used to be my staple, doing a lot of push-ups, but I never do push-ups anymore. All right. What do we got here? I don't know what that means. Okay. We got one last caller. We got Trey. Trey, you got 30 seconds. Give us your best 30 seconds, Trey.
I couldn't believe, before I start, I can't believe Mark did push-ups. Right off the line. But the first thing I would say real quick, one coach at Auburn would pay attention to. How about that Tulane coach? That's all I got to say. Tulane. Get him. He seemed like a great fit for Auburn and the culture. And let me say this. Georgia's on upset alert. I'm not saying Mississippi State's going to beat Georgia. They're on upset alert. Everybody keeps overlooking Mississippi State. Mississippi State's dangerous, and they lost most of their games by very close margins, except for maybe one or two games. Mississippi State's very dangerous. Is this a night game too? Is it a night game for Mississippi State?
Is it at Mississippi State?
I'm not sure.
I don't know.
Oh yeah, no. Well, they're at Mississippi State. It's a 12 p.m. So that's a difference. Okay. Now, if it was 7:30, they'd be a lot in trouble. You know how those cowbells are. Everybody jokes on the cowbells. They actually make some big difference in the games in the past, especially in the Dak Prescott era. But
why can people bring cowbells at night and they can't during the day?
I mean, I think it's just a stadium thing. You know what I mean?
Trey, again, we're getting into territory that you can't substantiate. That Mississippi State underdogs have any better chance at night than they do for a noon game.
Yes, just like
we have
the swamp.
No idea.
And the swamp is completely different. And the swamp is completely different. I went during the day and night. The energy is more up there at night.
This is all highly subjective.
Are you sure?
Yes. What you're saying is highly subjective.
I think it makes it different.
Is if you told me, Mississippi State is 17-4 at night, and they are 8-12 against ranked opponents at noon versus at night. If you told me that, then I'd say, oh, I'll have to look into that.
They did beat Arizona State at night. They did do that. They're a good team. They beat Texas Tech.
Understand. What I'm telling you is that just like I hear all the time with trap games, night games, yada, 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 I'm saying those could be true, but nobody's ever substantiated these things. I don't know why somebody that's into metrics does not break this down for us.
I would love to do that. The next time I probably will get on here and do it. The next thing is we talked about. You're not
getting on here and doing it. You better bring the numbers. You better go do the homework.
Mark. I'll bring the numbers to you.
Okay.
But the next thing is we talked about the American.
No more next thing. I gave you way too much time, Trey. Thanks for being here. We're way over time.
Thank you, Mark.
Call me back anytime. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, Mark.
For anybody that calls and I rush you off, thanks for being a good sport. But we are way over time. Adam, thank you for sponsoring our show tonight. You almost single-handedly got us past an hour, but we did tack on 16 minutes, so we'll have to buy that back somewhere. All right, everyone. Appreciate you being here. The Voice of College Football. We'll see you on Thursday night. And I'll go read the comment section, I guess.